myself out. I think I'm about to let myself back in again.
You're there. You're with us, Giles.
Hello, John.
We can see you and hear you.
Well, I can't see a thing. And now I've got all sorts of weirdness on the screen. Do what? Do what? No, I don't want to do that. All right. I don't want to launch a meeting. I just want to join now from my browser.
We can see you and hear you.
Well, I can't see a thing. And now I've got all sorts of weirdness on the screen.
Do you have a Windows computer or a Mac?
No, I don't want to do that. I have a Mac.
Okay.
I don't want to launch a meeting. I just want to join now from my browser. I see you and hear you. I'm getting all sorts of sound delayed. I'm hearing myself again.
That might need to
what I've done.
One device, that's all.
This is very exciting.
Giles, what I tend to do when that happens is go back to the storytelling, you know, the site, press the gold button again. And
okay. I never did. That's not the way in I went.
It takes me straight in.
Okay, I'll do that now.
Are you there?
I can do that now, I think. No, that's the thing. Behave. Sorry, it's because I've turned off my magnifier, so I keep putting the wrong letters for stuff. Right, where's this gold button?
If you find the bit World Storytelling Cafe stroke live stroke is and you should come up on the big square saying today's story, you know, the big square below the big square with you, with your name and picture next to it.
Got it.
Gold button, join meeting.
John, you're a genius. No, I'm back at this.
No, I'm just fighting my own incompetence in the past.
No, I'm getting this thing which I've got before, which says basic, advanced files. What are you talking about?
Oh.
Right. Oh, hang on. When system dialog prompts, click allow. Okay. So I'm hoping this is going to prompt me to click allow at some point. Otherwise, download and run Zoom. Come off it.
I
hope James is entertaining everybody in the meantime.
Yeah, no, he's doing very well. He's got lots of Vikings up here.
Doesn't need me really, mate. That's the thing. Who does? I tell ya. Sorry to keep people waiting.
That's okay.
All right, I'm going to close that completely. I don't know what I did, but somehow it just came back.
Because you did something intentionally.
No,
but without knowing it.
Nah, I did something completely by accident. That's always a secret. Hey, sorry, we're running late. And if we weren't late, we wouldn't be running, would we?
No.
Exactly.
No, without knowing it.
I did something completely by accident. That's always a secret. So I can still hear James drawing.
Because James isn't muted yet.
Mm-hmm. Thank you all for waiting, for your patience. Thank you for coming. It's going to be fun tonight. Tonight is the end of our journey so far. We're going to take a break. But tonight we're going to finish in style. We're going to finish with, we're going to tell the stories of the two great embarrassments of the gods. Not shame, embarrassment. So Just looking at the chat. Hello, Zuhair. Salam alaikum. Hello, everybody else. Thank you so much. Okay.
Okay, Giles.
Hello.
Luli has just been. I was muted a minute ago. I've just had to unmute.
Mm-hmm.
It said that you muted me, and
Yes.
also Lulio was muted, and now he's gone off.
Okay, yeah, that's the way it works, Rain, is that when we're
Oh.
telling, everybody apart from the teller is muted.
I see.
However, if you want to come in with an absolutely brilliant, biting, pithy, storytelling type interaction from the audience, all you do is you press the space bar and speak.
The space bar.
And then
Okay.
hold it whilst you speak. However, because Zoom has been liable to unhelpful interruptions from people, everybody is muted and people can't share screen because otherwise meetings can get overtaken and overrun by quite unpleasant hacking. Does that make sense?
Well, I've gone off now.
No, I can hear you.
But I can't see you.
Oh, I can see me. I can't see James.
I can't see you.
We can't see clearly now, the screen has gone. Where is a Yulu to bring sense to this?
Yeah, no.
Yulu is waving, but it's us that are drowning.
Yeah, I think James has some technical issues. He'll be back.
Yeah. So, technical issues notwithstanding. Hello, I'm going to have a look and see if there's anyone I recognize. Hello, John. John's muted. Good thing. Hello, Mandy. I don't know if I've met you, Mandy, but hello, Rain. Muted. No. We're going through.
No, I can't see you.
Cool. Never mind. You will. And there are people watching in YouTube probably going, what is this excitement? It looks like people haven't got a clue what they're doing. And they're right. I can see James. Okay, I can see James's face, but not his drawings. Oh, we're getting there. We're getting somewhere, I think. Oh, hello. There we are. Good. Can everybody see the drawing? Wave at me.
Yeah.
Yep. Good. Can we put everybody on mute apart from me?
Yeah.
And we can start. Great. So, if you've been tuning into these stories at all, let alone on a regular basis, you'll know that a king of Sweden, King Gylfi, had sworn an oath, which is a serious business. He'd sworn an oath that as long as he was king of Sweden, he would not part with a pebble from its coastline, nor yield up an inch from its soil. And I can hear James frantically drawing. Mute that artist. Well, Yulu, can we mute James? More technical issues. It sounds like mice running around in my head. So King Gylfi had sworn this oath that he wouldn't give up anything of Sweden, and shortly after swearing that oath, an amazing woman had turned up, a beautiful woman, stunning and quite unlike women of Sweden. Her hair was black and glossy and so dark it shimmered when she ran up and down the stairs or ran quickly into a room. Her smile was electrifying, and King Gylfi soon was following her like a puppy. And, well, she tricked him. He asked her what would she part with, what would she accept as a gift from him to make her stay with him enduring. And she'd said, oh, just a little bit of land to have and hold and call her own. And he'd, of course, said yes. And then realized, that was his oath. Did some backpedaling, said she could have as much as she could plow in the course of a day of a night. She went off, came back ages later with the largest ox and bulls anybody had ever seen. Huge bulls, massive black lumbering creatures with eyes which glowed like fire. And she'd plowed one dead straight line. And Gylfi had gone to sleep going, okay, she's taking strip farming to another dimension, but woke up in the morning because she'd cut off a whole chunk of his land and was now dragging it out to sea. This sent him off on a journey which has eventually led him to come to the world of the gods. So when he was chatting with the heroes in Valhalla, which we covered a bit of last week, when they had a bit to drink, said, go on, when you go back to the High Justice High and the Third, who were his mysterious communicators, get back to them and ask them about the two great embarrassments. Oh, yeah, go on, that's a good idea. Yeah, ask them about the two great embarrassments of the gods. Well, he'd gone back, and now he was in the immense presence of High, just as High, and the third. He felt a bit nervous, but he was aware that his own passage, his own journey there was because of his embarrassment. So perhaps if they could tell him about theirs, then he could tell them about his, because he desperately wanted to ask them, who was Gefjon? He'd learned that she was a relative of the Aesir, the gods. So shyly he said, great personages, I'm delighted to be in your presence again. They welcomed him. I've heard wonderful stories of courage and daring from the heroes in Valhalla. It's inspirational. High, just as High, and the third nodded slowly. And then Gylfi said, but some of the heroes, and possibly when they'd taken a drop, they suggested that I should ask you to tell me of the two great embarrassments of the gods. It all came tumbling out quite fast when he plucked up the courage. And High, just as High, and the third looked at him. They were motionless. And yet they changed. Because High, from embarrassment, and he had a high complexion anyway, his face colored red. Come on, James. Just as High, in the middle, oh, he knew the subject. In fact, he had a jaundiced attitude to the subject, and so sitting in the middle, just as High's complexion went, well, jaundice is yellow in color. That's brilliant, James. Which just left the third. And the third felt so sick at hearing this subject raised yet again. He felt bilious. His complexion took on a greenish hue. Well, so now King Gylfi, or Gangleri, as they knew him to be, was looking at what looked like three lights. One red, one yellow, one green, and no, the red one looked like a no-go. The amber one in the middle, he kind of couldn't go, no, he felt like that was a pause, and so he looked to the face that was green and thought, well, that's kind of, maybe that's my go sign. He said, please, I beg you, the third. I don't ask from any disrespect, but I would love to know the stories of the two great embarrassments of the gods. And the third said, then we will tell you. Phew. So, they began by reminding King Gylfi that Odin, all father of everything, father of the gods and of mankind, Odin had a huge palace called Valhalla Gylfi. This palace was in the center of Asgard, the world of the gods. This palace had at its back a huge mountain. And there was a reason that palace was built into that mountain, because going up the flanks of that mountain, there was a long and precipitous staircase which led to Odin's seat. His seat was called Hlidskjalf. And Hlidskjalf means high nest. And Odin was the only person permitted to sit on that seat because he was the only person who could take that responsibility. When Odin went and sat in Hlidskjalf, his one eye, I didn't tell you yet why he's only got one eye, that will have to wait until series 2. When Odin sat on Hlidskjalf, he could immediately see through all the 9 worlds. As we mentioned before, his 2 ravens sat on his shoulders. One was thought, one was memory. Every morning, thought flew forwards, memory flew backwards, and they collected all the information that Odin's one searching eye might have missed, and then they came back and spoke to him in the evenings. Well, nobody but Odin was permitted to sit on that seat because nobody but Odin could bear such a weight of such immense information, intelligence, knowledge. But Odin had a son, well, an adopted son, As I've mentioned before, there was another tribe of immortals living in Asgard. There's the Aesir, but also the Vanya. And there was a fight, and we've touched on that. But then the Vanya, and peace was made, and some of the Vanya came to live with the Aesir, and marriages were made, just a way of making peace. And two of those Vanya became two of the most essential deities of the gods of the Norse. They were Freyr and his sister Freyr. You've met her. Ah, Freyr. Freyr with the smile like dawn. Freyr whose laughter could make a condemned man whistle, goddess of love. Freyr, whom all gods, giants, men, dwarves, spirits, all longed for her. Well, she had her brother, Freyr. And Freyr was a god of springtime, of joy, of youthfulness, of fertility. And, well, some people say they are two aspects of the same being. But Freyr, with all that springtime eternally coursing through his veins, his arteries, his blood, his heart, his mind, he was impulsive. He was, well, you remember what it was like when you were young. I can do that, until you find out you can't. Odin was off somewhere doing some Odining somewhere. Dictionaries will catch up with me. And Freyr thought to himself, I want to see what the view is like from there. I mean, Odin's only got the one eye. I've got two. And I'm powerful. I'm strong. I want to see what I can see. It might be interesting. And so he climbed with great confidence, great speed, up those vertiginous steps, sat down on Hlidskjalf, and then such a torrent, such a flood of images began to flush before his eyes. It was like plugging himself directly into the World Wide Web, but it was more than that, because it was the 9 World Wide Web. He was seeing images from Asgard, from Midgard, from Jotunheimen, from Svartalfheimen, from Alfheimen, from Niflheim, even from the fires of Muspelheim, images flashing, 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 and this torrent of images, and his eyes were scanning through them as fast as he could. But you know the way that your eye tends to get drawn towards things that your mind is most interested in? Well, you can imagine, can't you, for a young deity, always young, always youthful, always springtime in his soul and in his heart. The thing that he found in all that torrent of images was, who is she? Of course, Freyr saw a woman so beautiful that all of Freyr's eternal life immediately seemed split into 2 great epochs, all that time before he saw her, and now the time that would follow. All the light in the world seemed to, there she was, shine from her face. She was in a remote corner of Jotunheimen, the world of the giants, not quite in Niflheim, that world of endless darkness and ice and poisonous water, but close to it, so cold and icy. And her beauty was cold and pure and exquisite. He saw her. She was in a huge and majestic hall, obviously the hall of a powerful giant king. And she was reaching to adjust the curtains. And when she reached up and her robe slid down her arms and Freyr saw her bare arms, he nearly fainted and looked again. And she reached up for those, and when she smiled slightly at the trouble she was having getting hold of her smile flashed through all the worlds, and Freyr felt it go through his heart like a dart. He was hook, line, sinker, head over heels, tumble down, tumble down, tumble down. I mean, it's pretty risky to fall in love when you're on such a high up seat with such a great drop. But Freyr fell hard in love. And then that beautiful woman, Freyr was a god. He could gain the information. He realized that she was none other than Gerd. It's a word which means field. There she was, this beautiful frozen field. And his mind already had grasped that her father was the frost giant Gymir, a great and powerful enemy of the gods. Too bad. He'd fallen in love with her. And then when she pulled those curtains shut, and she was gone, to Freyr, it was as if all the light had vanished from the world. And now he came stumbling, slouching, drudging down those high, high steps, all the way down. And then he didn't go to eat with the gods that night. He didn't go to meet with the gods that evening. He went straight to his hall, closed the doors, closed the curtains, shut himself up, pulled up his sheets, and just groaned. Oh! Well, people tried to find him, tried to talk to him, tried to coax him. People that did manage to get a word out of him couldn't understand what he was saying, just this kind of groan like a... Well, somebody not very kind said it sounds like a polar bear in labor. I don't know what's got into him. No, me neither. Well, and people tried, come on, Freyr, let's go hunting. They tried to suggest things like, Freyr, let's go riding, let's take eagles. And no. And they tried to get him to come and eat, and they managed to get him to the banqueting hall. They gave him his favorite food, and he took a bite and spat it out and went back to his... Do you know what? If he could have done, he'd have spent his time listening to 1980s indie music. He was that bad. Well, Freyr has an emissary, a herald who goes before him in all things. This emissary is called Skirnir, which name means the Shining One. And this Shining One went to his master, the god of fertility and springtime, and asked him, please, I beg you, master, I beg you, tell us what is wrong. And Freyr opened the casket of it, beg your pardon, the casket of his heart, opened his word hoard, and all the words came ripping out of him, how he loved Gerd, how he had to have Gerd, how he would die for love of Gerd. To which Skirnir said, is that all? Then I'll go and talk to her. I mean, come on, you're the god of fertility. I mean, who could turn you down? And Freyr looked at his herald and said, she could. Her father is a frost giant, Gymir. She is an ice maiden. She could turn me down, but she won't. I will... Give me your horse that rides so I can go through the barrier of fire, and let me go and woo her for you. And Freyr perked up for the first time since she'd closed those curtains. Yes, do that, Skirnir. But also take with you my greatest treasure. And Skirnir was, Master, are you certain? Yes. Take even that. His greatest treasure. What was that? How can I put it? See, the thing is, for the Vikings, for the Norsemen, Freyr, the god of springtime and of fertility, he has a weapon with a mind of its own. He has a sword that can fight by itself. It's one of the greatest gifts of the gods. It's one of the greatest treasures. It's one of the things the gods rely on, knowing, okay, one day Ragnarok is coming, the doom of gods and of giants. When the last battle will come, we will fight to the very death. But they think to themselves, we will have Freyr, who has his sword that fights by itself. And now Freyr was saying, yes, even take that. As what? Part of his dowry? Part of what he could offer? So Skirnir took the sword, took his own staff as herald of Freyr, and took Freyr's horse, and set off galloping quickly over the rainbow bridge that connects the world of gods to the world where mankind and giant kind live. And soon he'd got past the great stone fence, and soon he was riding quickly through Jotunheimen, and soon he was galloping into the colder parts of Jotunheimen, so that now the frost was gathering icicles on the bit and reins of the horse, and he breathing hard as he rode, but he could feel it was getting so cold, he could feel the mucus inside his nostrils crystallizing as he breathed. Trust me, I've been at minus 26 below. That's what happens. And people with beards grow icicles. It's amazing. And so, yes, Skirnir was growing icicles in his beard as he rode, and even passing through that barrier of fire, which they didn't warm him. And so he rode until he came to the hall that Freyr had described. And there he saw 2 enormous guard dogs. So he stopped the horse and thought, my feeling is those dogs are not going to give me a warm welcome. So he dismounted and watched for a while. What can I do? And then he saw a farmer, a giant, looking at his sheep. And Skirnir went to him and said, got a deal for you. Oh, yeah. And Skirnir offered this farmer that he had business in that hall, but the farmer could take the horse for as long as it took Skirnir to conclude his business, and the horse could be put with the farmer's mares. And Skirnir said, I promise you, you will have fine foals. I will do this for you if you will distract those dogs for me, because it seems to me the welcome they'll give me is not a kind one. You're right. And the farmer thought, well, farmers are good business people. And he agreed. And so he released some of his livestock to distract the dogs. The dogs were now rounding up the livestock, chasing the livestock. He caused all sorts of confusion, just enough. He took the horse, and whilst the dogs were off, driving away the animals that seemed intent on getting inside, Skirnir just slipped inside and was inside, and the dogs didn't even get near his ankles. Well, let's be honest, his throat. So then he went looking for Gerd. He found her. He found her as lovely as Freyr had described her. And he unleashed not his own word hoard, but the one he'd brought for his master. And as he spoke Freyr's words, the smell of spring was in that place. The sound of birdsong was in that place. The aroma of new blossoms and fresh grass was in that place. And Gerd felt it. And she looked at Skirnir, and obviously he was not from giant land, and she treated him with the respect due to a mighty stranger. But then she said, enough of this. What are you talking about? All these pretty words, but you are going to no particular purpose. So Skirnir came to the point. He said, my master loves you. He begs you. Go to meet him at the field, somewhere you both know. Go to meet him at Bara. Swear you will accept his embrace. Swear you will return his love. To which Gerd said, no, why would I do that? Because he loves you. But who's that? What's that to me? I've never met him. He is, I wasn't going to tell you, he is Freyr. And Freyr, god of springtime, one of the greatest of the Aesir. But I'm not one of the Aesir. I'm of the giants, and we have our own great ones here. Freyr, who could want for a better or more loving husband than springtime itself? Well, I could. I don't know anything about him. And when Skirnir saw that she was obdurate, he changed his tack. He lifted his staff, his herald staff, above his head. It shed light, and Gerd shrank from it. She felt the power in it. And Skirnir said, then if you will not accept, if you will not willingly go to my master, then I must curse you. I curse you to suffer as he suffers. I curse you to endless longing. I curse you to a state where the brightest day is night to you. You will see nothing. I curse you to an endless darkness. You will feel no warmth from fire, from husband, from loved one, from parent, from child. You will feel no warmth in your womb, in your heart, in your skin. You will feel nothing but cold, endless dark, endless cold. Gerd shrank from this. I mean, she was a frost giant, but come on, everyone's got their limits. You will be consumed with endless longing and desire, which will never be satisfied. This is what my master feels. You will be crouched there in Niflheim, land of endless snow and endless ice and endless poisonous rain and water and endless darkness. And every living creature you see, you will long for it. You will lust for it. You will reach for it, and it will scorn you. This is what my master feels when you scorn him. Giants will laugh at you. Ogres will urinate on you and spit at you. And you will ask for more. And Gerd said, your master really feels all this suffering. He does. Because of me. Because of you. I never knew that anybody could feel so strongly because of me. I promise you, he does. Then I will go and meet him. But you must leave something here. What? And Gerd demanded that as a sign of Freyr's honesty, truthfulness, and commitment, if she was to go to meet him at the place Bara, to accept him, his embraces, his love, then that sword that fights by itself, one of the greatest treasures of the Aesir, must be left with her father, the frost giant, Skirnir. Skirnir thought that was a great price, but he had his duty. He had his mission. And so he took that great glittering sword, and it was left with Gerd's father. But I can tell you that Gerd, her name means field. This field, this icy field, having first been visited by light, yielded to spring. She travelled to Bara, where she met Freyr, and Freyr poured out his heart and his love and his longing for her, and she saw it in his eyes, and for the first time she felt what he felt. And when he stretched out his arms to her, willingly, gladly, she stepped into his arms. Spring and that icy field were joined at Bara, which means barley. Well, said Hai, that is one of the great embarrassments of the gods. That Freyr became a fool for love. He's still in love. He's still a fool, because he has lost that sword that fights by itself forever. And when Ragnarok comes, he will be defenseless without it. He will die. And Gylfi, listen, that is a great embarrassment, and I know something of that myself. Could I then ask you to tell me of the second embarrassment of the gods? Well, it seemed to Gylfi when he said this that Hai, just as Hai and the third, smiled, just very quickly, they wiped it off their faces, just kind of a... And they began to tell the story of the second great embarrassment of the gods. You may remember, I told you in this series, the story of Loki sneaking into Thor's house and cutting off Siv's hair, Siv being Thor's wife. That becomes the story of how Thor gets his hammer, yada, yada, yada. You remember that. It's one of my favorites. Well, in time, Siv's beautiful hair grew again, grew back. In fact, some people say Siv's golden hair is it's wheat. Thor's thunder, Thor's rain, and anyway, symbolism again. But Siv's beautiful golden hair grew back again. And that whole incident of having a bald head, she'd almost forgotten it. Almost. One night, Siv was watching her husband, Thor the mighty, Thor the greatest, the strongest, the bravest of all the gods, Lord of Thunder. She was watching him get ready for bed. She was already in bed, and her beautiful golden hair was plaited into long, great braids of gold. And she was watching her husband with a mounting astonishment, because she watched as he took his shirt off and then put it on his, he folded it neatly and then put it on his side of the dressing table. And Siv was instead of just dropping it on the floor like he normally did. And then she watched in even more astonishment as he carefully took off his trousers, folded them neatly, put them next to his shirt on his side of the dressing table instead of leaving it on the floor as he normally did, just stepping out of it and forgetting all about it. leaving it for her to remember. She watched now in out-and-out amazement as he took his helmet off and placed it on the hook provided instead of leaving it on a cushion where it could surprise her at some other occasion. She was, by now, Steve was... And when she saw that he even took his boots off before he came to bed, now she was worried. Because, normally, they take so much tying and untying, and who knows when you'll need to be jumping out of bed when you're Thor. It seemed a nuisance. Well, he kissed her goodnight, turned his immense back on her, and soon he was fast asleep. And Steve, gently, put a hand to his forehead to see if he was feverish. He didn't seem to be. The last thing Thor had done before yielding to sleep was he'd taken his great hammer, Mjolnir the Molly Crusher, the greatest weapon of the gods, and he'd put it on his bedside table, just so that it would be near at hand should he need it. You never know. One last tap and he was asleep. And he slept well. But in the night, he dreamt a terrible dream. He dreamt that a thief broke into his castle, into his palace, and stole, you can guess, can't you? Mjolnir the Molly Crusher. So in the morning, when he woke, still more than half fuggled with sleep, he sleepily reached out. Just wanted to put his hand on the handle of his hammer, and then he would feel just a dream. It wasn't there. Thor sat up with such a jolt that on the other side of the bed, Steve was bounced out the other side. And Thor was on his feet and screaming at the top of his voice, my hammer! He ran all around the room looking, had it fallen? No, it hadn't. It was nowhere to be seen. And he was yelling, almost screaming, my hammer, help, my hammer, gods, come quick, my hammer, gods, please, gods, dwarves, elves, darkers, all of you spirits, Ham, my helper, quick, come, my hammer, Loki. You knew Loki would come in eventually, wouldn't you? Loki! Thor was roaring. All the time he's doing this, by the way, without really looking at her. He's picked up his wife and he's stuffing her back in bed and tucking her back in. Loki! Now this time Loki did not go running away. Loki came running too. What? What is it? Oh, no. Tell me what. Before you start shaking me, I demand you tell me what. You have stolen my hammer. No, I haven't. I swear it. And Thor, for a moment, think. I know that's not your strong point, but if you think for just a moment, you'll realize that there can only be one possible culprit for this. And you know very well who that is. Yeah, that's true. I do. Yes. Yeah, of course I do. Who's that then? The giants, Thor. The giants? Yeah. Obviously the giants. I knew the giants. It wasn't worth saying the giants. That's so obvious. But yeah. Okay. That's all right. My way's clear. So if it's a giant, okay. I will get the heroes. I'll get the boys out of Valhalla. We'll get armed up. We'll get tooled up. I will lead the ground attack because this is war. Odin on the Valkyries can provide aerial support. Heimdall will join me. And Tyr, of course, will be my second. Thor, for a moment, stop and think. I know it's not your strong point. Quick in action, not so quick in thought. But consider at least the possibility that the giants will be ready for you, expecting, waiting for you, and knowing that they've got your hammer and you haven't. Thor, do you not think there's the slightest chance the balance might be tipped? You might even be killed. Thor did not like this idea. He rejected the idea. But a council of the gods was called. In their hall, their courtyard of Gladsheim, they sat in their seats, and the goddesses came too from their home and their hall. And the cases were put. Thor's idea, direct attack, full force. Loki's idea that he go and do some intelligence gathering. But of course, that's what they thought. They went with Loki's idea. So Loki went to the palace of love, the home of love, Sestrumnir, the hall of the many seats, where lives Freyr, Freyr's sister. And Loki, even clever Loki, can't get in without knocking. Nobody can enter the palace of love without consent. Loki knocked. I love that cheap storytelling sound effect. Should we do it again? And Freyr's voice came from inside like the chiming of a silver bell. come in. And Loki went inside, and there was Freyr spinning raw wool from a distaff, so beautiful that Loki, everything between his ears just went zoom. Hello, Loki. Hello, Freyr. It's nice to see you. What have you come to see me about? What have I come to see you about? You must have had a reason. I must have had a reason. And why are you smiling like that? Are you constipated? Constipated? No, good Lord, no. That brought him back to himself. No, not at all. No, very regular, thank you. No, it's just that, listen, something's happened. Can I borrow your birdskin cape? He told her what had happened. She, well, of course you can. And she went straight to one of her many wardrobes, opened it and began. Oh, ladies, she's got some nice things in here, hasn't she? I wonder if I can still fit into that. Anyway. Ah, here you are. And she gave Loki that falcon skin cape. He put it on, and now he was a falcon, scimitar sharp his wings, falcon fast his wing beats, and he flew across the worlds, over the ocean, and soon found himself circling over a very particular part of Jotunheim, and he found himself circling over the stronghold of King Utgarda-Loki, King Loki of Outgard, whom, if you were listening a few weeks ago, made such a fool, not just of Loki, or Thjalfi or Roskva, but also of Thor himself. And King Loki of Outgard was sat outside his stronghold. A couple of his hunting dogs were relaxing. He was just passing his time, plaiting some leather leashes for his hounds, when the king looked up. When he saw the falcon. Loki, unless I'm very much mistaken. To which Loki answered, there's no disguise from you, your majesty. No, there isn't. You look well. Loki, it's nice. Loki, why don't you're going to give me a crickneck. Why don't you sit and land somewhere? To which Loki answered that he would rather keep out of arm's reach. Probably a good idea. All right, well, if I must do this, let's get on with it. How can I help you? And Loki explained his mission. He'd come looking for Thor's hammer because somebody had stolen Thor's hammer. Oh, have they? Well, who on earth can be the culprit for such an outrageously audacious theft? To which Loki answered, that would be you, your gigantic majesty, at which the king laughed. Yes, it is me. And you can tell two goats that I've hidden his little hammer in such a secret place, telling no one where it is. He will never find it. No one will ever find it. And if he comes blasting in here and kills me, then the knowledge of its whereabouts goes with me. Nobody knows where it is but me. So he can't come in here and kill me, can he? Not if he wants his little hammer thing back, his little tic-tac-toe toy back. What then, asked Loki, do you want? To which the giant king said, my terms are very reasonable. I will give Thunderchops his hammer back for a very modest return. All I want is, you can guess, can't you? Freyr to warm my bed. That's all I want. Loki flicked his wings and he was off. He flew back and Thor was waiting. No. What do you? I mean, Loki was half in and out of the cape. He was half bird, half Loki. And so, what do you find out? King Loki of Outgard. I knew. I'm going to. Well, he says all you've got to do to give it back is Freya's got to marry me. I said, oh, no problem. So Thor went blundering straight to Sesramnir and he hammered on the door. Boom, 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 boom. Freyr said, come in. What's all the haste? And Thor said, Freyr, get a wedding dress. And, oh, lovely. Who's getting married? You are. Diplomacy is not Thor's forte. I think you'd agree. Oh, I am I? And do I get to ask who I'm going to be married to, or am I just being a bit too modern for you, Thor, a bit too Scandinavian? Well, Thor explained she was going to marry King Loki of Outgard, and she went berserk. The distaff she'd been using, if you don't know what a distaff with raw wool looks like, just imagine very large candy floss. But my God, she began to wallop Thor and Loki over there, saying, I will not marry a giant, not even as a king. I won't have it. I absolutely refuse. And these gods well, they escaped with their hands over their heads and the door was slammed shut behind them. And as you know, they can't force their way back in. So Thor said, all right, so much for your idea. Back to my idea. I will lead the ground assault, and Heimdall and Tyr will be my commanders, and the heroes from Valhalla. Now Odin and the Valkyrie. No, Thor, no. This. And Loki was holding in this hand a bridesmaid's dress, and in this hand a wedding dress. And Thor, you're not so clever, are you? Weren't you listening? She won't have anything to do with that idea. So, no, that's not what I'm suggesting. Thor, this dress here is for me, and this one, it's for you, darling. No. No. Well, you get the plan, don't you? Loki's plan was that he would go disguised as a bridesmaid and Thor himself would go disguised as Freyr. They would get into the stronghold of Utgard, and then inside they would find Mjolnir, the Molly Crusher, Thor's hammer, and then they would fight their way out. Thor, of course, utterly refused. Another council was called in Gladsheim, and the Aesir and the Vanya and lots of great minds cogitated and considered until eventually they decided the best idea was Loki's. I don't know how they did it. I know a great crowd of the Valkyrie came to have a look. I know an even greater crowd of the heroes came out of Valhalla to see this extraordinary sight. Thor, god of thunder, being forced into, crammed into, stuffed into a wedding dress. Loki had slipped into that bridesmaid's dress with a rather indecent eagerness. In fact, oh, this is bringing something out of me. Oh, hello. Yeah, I mean, some of the Valhalla heroes, they maybe started drinking. Oh, who's that? They didn't realize it was, she looks all right. Oh, play your cards right. I might see you later. I might come and visit. Hello. Well, Loki was having great fun. He loves deception of all kinds. And I'll be honest, he looked good. Thor, they'd put great petticoats to cover his colossal thighs. They'd put great long shawls and capes to cover his bulging biceps, his ferocious forearms. And they'd put a veil over his face to cover his bristling beard, his blazing eyes. Well, he was in his costume. And Loki had made some adjustments to his bridesmaid's dress. Now it was outrageous. Now it had some sort of very deep cut down the back. I mean, you'd never think, would you, of a bridesmaid stealing thunder from a great and illustrious wedding, would you? That would never happen at all, would it? Making all the headlines the next day. Anyway, Thor got into his chariot. Loki got in behind him. Loki was waving still at the heroes. Hi, no, I know. Oh, you cheeky. When Thor cracked the reins and they set off at such a speed that Loki nearly fell out of the back. And they blazed across the world, lightning crackling as they went, and the rolling of those wheels, the rumbling sound of thunder. King Loki of Utgard, King Utgard Loki, heard that rumbling. My bride is coming quick. Everybody get their feast ready. And so now the servants and everybody was running around like mad, setting up a massive table, covering it with food. There was roast oxen, there was roast boar, there was stuffed salmon for the giantesses and dainties and all sorts of things for everybody who wanted them. And it was going to be like the roasted apples and toffee apples and the most amazing sweet and honeyed snack. Oh, just amazing food. It was a wedding feast after all. And the king was so excited. And the bride and bridesmaid arrived. The bridesmaid was a bit saucy, catching the eye. Already some giantesses were telling their husbands, no, stop it. Are you going to embarrass me? The king sat down, the proudest man in Jotunheimen. On this side, a cheeky bridesmaid. And on this side, the goddess Freyr, goddess of love. Well, the feast started, and I must admit the king was startled when he saw his delicate feminine bride-to-be pick up an entire roast boar and just eat it, leaving nothing behind. And then as he gazed in amazement, she reached for a whole roast oxen and began to do the same thing. He turned in some amazement to the bridesmaid saying, I confess I've never seen an appetite like this on a woman before. At this, even Loki paused before delivering the outrageous lie that he had to deliver. But he said, "Oh, well, Your Majesty must understand that since she's heard she's going to be married to you, Freyr has been so excited that she's really been off her food. And oh, you know what brides are like in getting into their wedding dresses. She's lost quite a lot of weight, but it's any wonder she's a bit of, she's rather hungry now. And look at the appetite she has. Giant appetite to make a good wife for a giant husband." Yes, I see that. That's a very good omen. Oh my God. Now he looked in amazement because his bride had picked up an entire hogshead, by which I mean a huge cask, of ale, drunk the lot, let out an enormous belch, and now his bride was eating all the stuffed salmon and all the dainties set aside for the giantesses, who were kind of looking a bit like, oh my God, who is this? Where was this girl brought up? Well, now, seeing this, the king was impatient. He couldn't resist. He was so excited, he determined he was going to break with convention. He was going to twitch up that veil and steal a kiss from his bride-to-be. He couldn't wait any longer. And so he just lifted that veil, and when he turned back to the bridesmaid, his hair was standing on end. He had gone white as a sheet, and his eyes were nearly popping out. He was so scared by what he'd seen. He said, I've never in my life seen such flashing red eyes on a woman before. Now Loki was in his stride, and I said, "Oh, Your Majesty must understand that since she's heard she's to be betrothed to Your Majesty, Freyr has been so excited that she's not been able to sleep a wink for thinking of the pleasure to come, the joy awaiting her. And so with all the sleep, is it any wonder her eyes are a little bloodshot?" I understand. And oh, right. And the king had had enough of this feast. Enough. Clear the feast. Let's have the ceremony now. I can't put it off another moment. I'm so excited. And so all the food was cleared. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to inform you that King Utgarda-Loki and the goddess Freyr, kind of, but in fact, Thor himself, they were married in the traditional way, which is to say, the happy couple placed their hands one on top of the other, by laying them on the most expensive, the most precious possession that household could boast of, which was, of course, Thor's hammer. And Thor, feeling his hand on the handle of that hammer, felt his confidence returning, felt his self-possession returning, remembering who he really was. Now, Thor's a traditional fellow. He's not rude, so they were officially married. He did not break the ceremony, the service. That's just bad manners, isn't it? Sacrilege almost. So when the king and Freyr were officially married, the king was delighted, turned to his bride, who suddenly whisked that hammer away, transferred it to his smiting hand, and then threw back his veil. And the king, King Utgarda-Loki, a mighty powerful giant as he was, screamed. He was so frightened when he saw underneath that veil Thor. And then he saw nothing more, because Thor brought that hammer down, smash, on the head of his archenemy, felling him with such a crushing blow as killed him on the spot. Now the giants are scared of Thor at the best of times, and now the fact that Thor was wearing a dress was just too awful a sight to countenance. They fell back. They were stumbling over one another, knocking tables flying, trying to get away. Thor, kind of in the heat of the moment, grabbed the bridesmaid, forgetting for a moment that it wasn't really a bridesmaid, it was Loki, who could goddamn look after himself. But no, he grabbed a real Swords of Zorro, real Pirates of the Caribbean sort of stuff. He had Loki around the waist, and Thor smashed and bashed his way out. The giants, I must say, did not put up much of a fight. The sight of Thor in a frock was terrifying. He smashed his way out. They got to his chariot outside, Tooth Gnasher and Tooth Grinder, the two goats, just waiting until they were needed, jumped inside, grabbed the reins, and Loki had only just got inside when Thor cracked the reins and took off at such a speed that Loki nearly slipped out of the back. And they flew all the way back to Asgard and said hi. All the time they flew, Thor was muttering and muttering, saying the same thing over and over again. He was saying, said Just as High. Whatever happens, he would say, whoever you speak to, wherever you go, swear. Swear, added the third. On all you value, swear. You will never tell anybody about this incident. You will never, said High, tell anyone about seeing me, said Just as High, in a frock. You swear, said the third. That's what they made him swear. That's what Thor muttered. That's the only thing he said for the entire journey. And all the way through that journey, Loki swore and swore and swore he wouldn't tell anyone. Do you think he kept his oath? He must have told somebody. And somebody must have told somebody else, who told somebody else, who told somebody else, until it made a great chain of somebody else's and somebody's to somebody else's, which now stretches well over 1,500 years more. Because eventually somebody else told me. Now I've told you. Oops. And what you do with it, that's entirely up to you. Well, that was all High, Just as High and the third had for Gangleri, King Gylfi. And that's all I have for you, not just for this week, but for, I don't know, John has said that the back episodes are going to be available somewhere on the World Storytelling Cafe, but we're going to take a break. And thank you so much for coming on this journey with us, story drawing. We hope you've enjoyed it. Please remember to make a contribution by leaving a tip for me and James in the hat. And if you want to, do your own drawings, and you can submit those to the gallery afterwards, and they will be there on the World Storytelling Cafe. Your work, your drawings, paintings, pastels, inspired by the stories you've heard. Thank you so much.
Thank you, James. That's an amazing series. Thank you.
Thank you. Who said that?
That was Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Of course, it's Mike. Thank you very much. It's been our pleasure.
Thank you, Giles.
Loved the entire episodes. Thank you so much, Giles.
I don't recognize that voice, but it's beautiful. Who's that? It's a lovely American accent. Who's speaking now?
It's David.
Hi, David. How are you?
Oh, short, fat, and sassy.
Short, fat, and sassy. Yeah. Can you get that in hairdressers?
I think so.
Bless James, by the way, you probably worked out that when I made High, Just as High and the third turn into traffic lights at the beginning, James didn't know I was going to do that. James, thank you for your work on this. It's been brilliant.
Thanks, Giles.
Thanks.
Thanks, Giles and James.
Thanks, both of you. That's great.
Awesome job again.
That was lovely, actually. Really nice.
Thank you, Giles. And like Giles said, if anyone wants to see the other stories or anything else that's been on in the cafe since about, I think March the 27th was when we did our first story. It's
Sounds
all
right.
in the archive, and we'll be there for some time, I think.
Yeah.
Possibly centuries.
Possibly for as long as interweb lasts.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and maybe in autumn time we'll come back and do some more, because there are many Viking stories you haven't heard yet. And I can hear young people. That's a lovely sound. Hello. Yes, so that's Arthur. Hi, Arthur. Hi, Mark. I can hear you.
How you doing? Good job.
Yeah.
Great.
And tomorrow night, if you want to come back live, we've got Shelley Varma, who's Indian and based in Switzerland, I think.
Superb.
So she's on at 6 o'clock tomorrow. And on Monday, we celebrate Gypsy Traveller and Roma History Month. And I've got an enormous selection, which is far too long a list to read. But it's going to be an amazing evening. So
Yeah, that would be.
so join us for either of those, or catch up later.
And John, I'm going to be doing a healing story at 8 o'clock tomorrow.
Oh,
Just
right.
remind
That nice one, Lucy. Of course, that's not, I haven't got that written in my diary. I must apologise.
No, that's all right.
Well, thank you all so much for coming with us on this journey. And I am going to toddle off. And I'm going to leave. So I'm
Round of applause for Giles after that amazing series. Thank you,
And
Giles.
James.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mike.
Thank you, Giles.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all. Good night.
It's been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ah,
I'm still here.
right. Thank you, Giles.